day is very unique in its own right, that what area I think could see more thunderstorms, and then tomorrow's the only day that I really see that is sticky compared to overly humid. So we'll take that as some optimism.
As the drier day.
Yeah, so our drier day is just kind of
just
sticky.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll take what we can get. But sometimes in June, you will have those big drops. Truly what you need is a cold front to swoop in some cool Canadian air, and then we linger for a couple of days, and then it's up back to normal. We don't really have that setup, and that's one of the complicated things. So let's first look over our Dallas camera. If we had a time lapse of this, you would have noticed that you couldn't see anything over the last hour or two. This is really the process, the way that fog and low-level clouds will burn off. So as the temperature starts to warm, the fog or the ground clouds will start to lift and rise. Same thing for low-level stratus. And then eventually it starts to get spent, and then you start to see more breaks, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. This is going to give way to a little bit more sunshine. It has not been a beautiful start to the day. I understand, and I'm sorry about that. But
yes, your fault.
Yeah, hey, I have to take responsibility. I am the messenger, and then people like to blame me.
Yep, they do.
But the rare occasion they'll actually give me kudos when the weather is nice. More so the blame than the kudos.
So easy.
But that's okay. The say la vie, the life of a weatherman.
Yep.
Here's a look at our uptown camera. Even if you look off in the distance, you're like, yeah, it's still pretty cloudy. It's a brighter cloudy. So we're gonna have that for, certainly for the closure of the morning. But the time that I think you need the umbrella most likely is really between about 3 and 9. That's what I'm calling for. I think late afternoon to the early evening. That's usually the typical timing. And we'll show the reason why. We also have a low chance for a severe thunderstorm. That's also kind of with the forecast in this time of year. But I want to show you the warmest days of 2025. I thought this was interesting. Now, it is June. It's warmer, so you expect this. But Saturday the 7th, Friday the 6th, and then yesterday the 9th were our 3 warmest days. So the 3 warmest days we've had of 2025 have come over the last 4. And today is a separation from that rule. We only have 85 degrees. However, we're going to have a real feel around 89 because it is so humid. So don't discount that. Also, the big driver of the forecast is this front. Now, it's a cold front now, but really what it is a quasi-stationary front. All right, everyone say quasi-stationary front.
Quasi-stationary front.
That sounds great. So what that means is kind of a front that's doing one of these. It's just wiggling around. So you never know what it's going to do. Like, where am I going to be? Am I going to be over here? Am I going to be over here?
Yeah.
That's the complication of the forecast. You got a wiggly Chris line all over the place. And if you know me, I'm all over the place. Where's he going to be? That's exactly where the front is. So that's why they call me stationary front. No one does that, but maybe now they do.
Stationary front, thank you.
But this is actually going to have some sort of movement today. And that's why I think that we can track things a little bit better than we otherwise could. Today's actually probably one of the more trackable days, just like we had yesterday. So that's why we have this yellow line. And the further east that you go, I think the storms could get a little bit stronger. And the areas in the gray doesn't mean you're not going to have a strong thunderstorm. This is just where things are a little bit more likely. So right on the cusp, I think this is more of a weather impact window. So really about 3 to 9. High of 85 degrees, 86 is the norm. So that's not really unusual. But notice some of the temperatures I have here. 83 at 2 actually feels more like 87. 84 feels more like 88. And that means the 85 will feel kind of like 89. Sometimes it will get a little bit drier in the afternoon. Nope, that doesn't happen today. So let's take a closer look at where the strongest storms will be. So pretty much that graphic I just showed you with the yellow, this is the same thing, but you can see the precipitation over it a little bit better. So all of us are within the thunderstorm zone. It's just southeast and east of that yellow line is where things get a little bit stronger. And check it out. You see actually a little bit more definition of this line by about 3 o'clock, and that brings it over Gastonia and Lincolnton, and then about 4 to 5 o'clock across the Charlotte area. I have seen some indications that this could slow down. That's why I still want to keep that window of opportunity about 3 to 9 o'clock, where I think that really the early evening could be some of the more prevalent area storms. Kind of saw that yesterday. But then notice by 11 o'clock, we still have that potential. So this is one of those systems that I think will continue to go through the duration of this evening, and eventually will wind down through the early morning hours, which, by the way, if the clouds do clear, you'll be able to see the full moon, the full strawberry moon. I know it's the most delicious moon I have here, much better than the worm moon.
Yeah.
3:44 is when it's full. This is actually one of the lowest angles for a full moon. It's only about 30 degrees. I've seen some conflicting stats. This is the lowest it's been in a decade or two. I just can't really confirm that at that point. It's just super low. So that means that really I think the best view is going to be between about midnight and 2. However, we will have some clouds at that point. But I'm really showing you this. If anything weird happens, you know why. The full moon, yeah.
Oh, sure.
It's like, man, why is this person acting this way? Full moon.
moon.
Full moon.
So parents with toddlers, watch out. That's including me. Here's a closer look at that wiggly crystalline as I've been describing it. Here's a good example. So what happens is tomorrow morning, okay, it's down to the southeast. This would usually mean, hey, you don't have to worry about anything. Because whenever you have one of these draped over an area, it's usually within 25 miles of this line because that's what lifts things. Once you hit the peak heating of the day, that's where the storms are. But it forgot something. So it comes back to Charlotte, which I think is mainly going to impact our Thursday forecast. But this is just kind of a fun way of showing you that, hey, it's a really undefined forecast after this because we don't really know what that front's going to do. Sometimes it's maddening. It could last for weeks, or just a couple of days. But that's why I only have a spotty to isolated chances on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because it just depends where that front's going to be. Then we have a closer nearby front on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. This is where I think we have a better chance for more of those numerous storms. Here's a look at what Wednesday could look like. Still to the southeast, we see a majority of the storms. Some could bend back a little bit further. Your Thursday, I think that you see a few bubbling up during the afternoon, a little bit closer to the access to that front. And then beyond that, I think for the weekend, it's a slightly better chance for storms. Just like Jane asked, when's the window? Before 2. So this is summertime, y'all. And I don't really have anything too crazy for you. We know what it's like living in here in the Carolinas. It's been a while since we've had those daily pop-up thunderstorms. They can be great if you don't want to be outside anymore. They can be terrible if you have any outdoor plans. So what I've been telling people, kids' birthday parties, et cetera, do it before 2. I don't think you really have too much to worry about. So that's good news. I have a tea time on Saturday, and I'm not worried. So there's jokes about the weatherman telling you, hey, don't go out there for the tea times. No, I'm not worried at this point that it's going to
6
rain.
a.m.?
Yeah, mine's at 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go to sleep in.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, you usually get up around 6 or so anyways. I'll just take whenever I can get. I rarely golf. Plus, I'm pretty terrible. So I should have went earlier so less people would see me. All right, so our 7-day forecast, 84 to 89. Each day a thunderstorm chance. Tomorrow is the only day that's just sticky with a low chance for rain and storms. So I'm saying that every day repeats itself. We can just say it's summer, y'all.
It's summer. Quasi-stationary front.
Quasi
You didn't mention any shrimp.
No shrimp, which is good. We don't
good.
we don't
No
want
go
shrimp.
back. We don't want shrimp.
These are more individual guys. You might have some shrimp-esque storm formations, but it's not like yesterday. Yesterday, I think the storms were a lot more active, better environment for that. We still could see it, but it just doesn't have the same drive, I don't think.
It was a nice, robust thunder.
Ooh, I like that, the
late
robust.
last night.
Yeah, and in that type of environment, you have something that's called an inversion. So that literally, it kind of blocks it, so it makes it sound actually louder because it insulates the sound. So we had that yesterday. I want to show one more thing that I was mentioning earlier in our WCNC Plus between 7 and 9. So the sunrise this morning is 6:08. That's the earliest sunrise time that we're going to have for the rest of the year. It's actually the middle of June, no matter where you are. I looked up Cincinnati, Ohio. Theirs typically spans around the same time, just ends the 21st. This goes until the 19th for us. So we still have some times at 6:08, so you'll be able to remember the sunrise time. Then it moves to 6:09. And I think one of the worst things that I hear each summer solstice is people get bummed saying it's only downhill from here. I would just say that it's only a slight decline from here because look at the difference. The longest day of the year, which is usually the summer solstice and the following day, you have 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 1 second of daylight. So that's from sunrise to sunset. That's the period of daylight. A month later, on July 20th, you only lose 21 minutes. That's not really noticeable. It's August that you see that real vast change. It's about an hour. So don't immediately think about the losing of daylight right away.
positive here.
Yeah,
Right.
think positive because other people people. It's like, oh, well, downhill from here. It's like, no,
What is that?
glass is half full.
That's
And
right.
you're barely losing a minute per day. So yes, this is the earliest time for our sunrises. Yes, that is technically the longest period of daylight, or the longest day, as people like to put it. I just want people to remain optimistic, even with our
Yeah.
storm chances in that scenario. So that was my final note.
Absolutely. Plus, it's going to be stickier and stickier. I'm going to want to stay inside
Exactly.
in the AC.
Oh,
So-
yeah. I absolutely loved. I was doing yard work and I was like, "It's about to storm, dang!" Oh no, I would love to continue doing this.
Yeah.
So sorry. All right, quasi-stationary front.
It's a smooth nickname, you know, rolls right off the
Yeah,
tongue.
doesn't it?
A lot of syllables.
All right. Thank you so much,
Of
Chris,
course.
for coming in. That is your weather alert. No, weather impact weather today.
Some impacts.
Some impacts.
Some impacts.
Potential impacts. All right. Thanks for coming in again.
Always a pleasure.
We are coming up on 9:15 this morning. Like I mentioned, top of the 9 o'clock here, President Trump deploying more National Guard troops to L.A., as well as up to 700 Marines overnight after a fourth night of protest there due to ICE raids. Let's get the latest now with Chris Pallone covering things from Washington. From Washington. There we go.
After another night of skirmishes between protesters and police, 700 active duty Marines are joining the effort to quell the violence that erupted over the weekend in downtown Los Angeles, sent there by President Trump.
I think it would have been a very bad situation. It was heading in the wrong direction. It's now heading in the right direction.
The Marines joined thousands of National Guard troops called up against the wishes of California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass.
There was no reason for them to be here in the first place. If anything, it was a provocation.
California now asking the courts to send the military home.
Trump and Hegseth ignored law enforcement's expertise and guidance and trampled over our state's, California's, sovereignty.
The city was burning. Governor Newsom did nothing. The mayor did nothing. So President Trump, God bless him, he sent the National Guard in to save property and save lives.
Mayor Bass now urging the Trump administration to stop the immigration raids taking place throughout the area, which sparked the violent protests.
These raids do not need to take place. You are talking about people's places of work. You're talking about schools.
On Capitol Hill, disagreement over whether the military presence is helping or hurting.
Clearly the state needs help and the president's sending help. Hopefully it'll bring some peace.
These people have zero credibility on the other side of the aisle when it comes to issues of law and order.
A war of words over how best to keep the peace. Chris Pallone, NBC News, Washington.
Right now, the North Carolina General Assembly in Raleigh, they are having a meeting for the House Finance Standing Committee. On the table, up to 47 bills, including one on no tax on no tips, another one dealing with gambling losses. Let's go ahead and check in live now as they are just getting things underway here at 9:15 on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Therapists in any way, but will allow the board more authority to regulate providers and ensure public health and safety. It has the support of the American Physical Therapy Association of North Carolina, and I know of no opposition.
Representative Setzer, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for a favorable report for House Bill 536 and re-refer to the Committee on Rules.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Setzer moves, or Chairman Setzer moves for a favorable report to the bill with a referral to rules. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Congratulations, Representative Ryan. Seeing no other business before the committee, this committee is adjourned.
Meetings are quick and efficient there in Raleigh. So North Carolina General Assembly Senate Standing Committee, is adjourned for that right now. In the meantime, here in Charlotte, of course, the drama continuing, the fallout of the teachers and the resignation of principal at Ardrey Kell, Jamie Brooks, come June 1st. So with her resignation, a lot of teachers were speaking out at Board of Education meeting last week, and parents are also speaking out. There was an input session last night. Our Tradicia Woodard covered that. We do understand it was a closed-door meeting, but she did talk to parents after that meeting. Here's some of those raw interviews now as we're going to play for you here on Live Impact News.
Okay. So first question, talk to me a little bit about what happened in the meeting today. And this is for anyone who chooses to answer.
Well, the meeting started off a little difficult. We're still a very upset community. So it started off a little rough, a little slow, but fortunately they sent a good moderator to help get the meeting going. And we built a principal profile, but unfortunately we're very concerned that they were just checking the community box. So, you know, we don't have a lot of faith in CMS right now. We don't have a lot of trust with them right now. So, you know, it remains to be seen.
Okay. And what were one of the biggest questions you guys had tonight? Do you feel like you got answers or clarity on anything?
I mean, our biggest questions were trust, and they made it very clear this is not what we are speaking about tonight. So, I mean, those questions still remain
unanswered, yeah.
And we've been through panels like this before with other principalships. So we'll see if they listen to us.
We heard you guys were also broken off into several groups, different classrooms. Were you expecting that at all?
We were not, and actually that was part of the issue in the very beginning because we were not expecting that. And quite honestly, we took it into our own hands and came into one classroom and insisted they speak to all of us as a whole community, and they did.
They did?
Yes.
Okay. But initially you guys were being broken off?
Initially they tried to break us off, yes.
Okay. I think in 3 different rooms by color, and then when they tried to break us off, even after joining us together, we said we would like to stay here together.
Okay. What were some of the biggest takeaways? Do you feel like you learned anything? You walked away with any slight satisfaction from what you heard today, or is it still kind of...
It still remains to be seen how they will... like I said, we still have unanswered questions.
Right. And I made it very clear, it's hard to decide what we want in the next principal if we don't know why they got rid of our last one and the previous 3. This is the 4th principal that they have forced out. So, you know, it's hard to make a list of what to look for in the next one if we don't know why they let go of our last one.
And did they speak on any of these decisions, or was it?
Oh gosh, absolutely not. And they told us they weren't going to, but it was funny. Everything we talked about in a principal, we referred back to with Jamie or previous principals, their characteristics to find. So they're going to have to find a unicorn. I don't know how they're going to do it, but...
Is there anything else you guys would like to mention, or something that happened that maybe I'm not mentioning?
I think it just, the frustration still lies where they made it very clear there's 2 different paths to choosing the principal. Path 1 is a sitting principal where no panel is involved, and then there's one for another position or an outside CMS employee, and there would be a parent panel involved. So it's disheartening to know that parents won't have a voice outside of tonight's meeting unless it's one of the 2 paths.
However, we did make it very clear that we, as parents, would like to be involved in this process of picking the next principal, and we asked them to take that back to CMS and see what they could do about making that happen.
All right, so the saga continues around Jamie Brooks, former principal of Ardrey Kell, with parents speaking out, still asking for more transparency from CMS and reasons why she resigned, with no reasons given to staff, teachers, as well as media. We have requested as well comment from CMS. All right, Dedham, Massachusetts is where the Karen Read retrial is taking place. The defense potentially resting their case this week. It was a contentious day yesterday with the defense asking for a mistrial yet again, twice in a week. Let's go and check in now and listen in as they're just starting things underway here in Dedham, Massachusetts on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Exhibits D, 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 and exhibits E, 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 E. Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are asking the court to reconsider the court's ruling yesterday concerning Dr. La Posada and her ability to opine on the issue of dog bite and claw mark wounds and pattern recognition. We had some concerns yesterday and previous to yesterday about an issue that has been ongoing with the Commonwealth, and we've brought this to the court's attention. The Commonwealth has been using a tactic to shift the burden to the defense with cross-examination that's laced with indications or implications about witnesses that may or may not be called by the defense. That is a problem. I brought it to the court's attention at sidebar. The court will probably remember that colloquy. It was not an open court, but I expressed grave concerns, to use that phrase, that there was a burden-shifting system that was going on when Mr. Brennan is asking our witnesses about, or his witnesses, about other witnesses that may be on the defense witness list and may be called. Obviously, as the court knows, foundationally, we don't have to call anybody. We don't intend to call anybody. We don't have to call anybody, but we can call whoever we feel like. But we shouldn't be put in a position where our hand is forced to call witnesses because of questioning by the Commonwealth, which is improper. After I brought it to the court's attention, Mr. Brennan has continued along that same line. The Commonwealth has continued along that same line, and I want to bring something to the court's attention specifically. Last night, we pulled the tape. Dr. Russell was cross-examined by Mr. Brennan on the issue specifically of Dr. La Posada and her opinions regarding dog bites. He asked questions over and over and over again. The colloquy probably lasted more than 5, 6, 7 minutes with Dr. Russell, specifically on the issue of whether or not she had seen Dr. La Posada's reports, whether she was aware of Dr. La Posada's opinions, implying that Dr. La Posada had opinions about the dog bites. He was asked if she was familiar with Dr. La Posada's credentials. Dr. Russell said yes, she was familiar with Dr. La Posada by name, that she thought she had impeccable credentials, and she very much wished she could have seen her reports as it relates to dog bites. It was an intellectual curiosity by Dr. Russell that was evoked and elicited by Mr. Brennan on cross-examination of Dr. Russell. She was then asked the seminal question: did the defense, Dr. Russell, give you any reports by Dr. La Posada related to dog bites?
What page is that on here?
On the transcript?
Yes.
Oh, my motion's back at the desk.
Oh, I see it.
Does the court have it?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just read it. Question by Mr. Brennan to Dr. Russell. And so you think of all those forensic pathologists, medical examiners, you think that qualification and experience itself is not enough to qualify someone to give an opinion on a photograph about the genesis of a wound related to dog bites? Answer: well, if a forensic pathologist autopsied 1 or 2 cases of dog bite wounds versus my experience with over 500 to 1,000 cases of dog bite wounds, I'm not sure that person would be a very good expert in that kind of case. Question by Mr. Brennan: have you ever heard of a doctor named La Posada?
So are you going to read all 3 pages?
No.
So I've read it, Mr. Jackson.
I'd like to read it into the record, Your Honor.
It's in the record. I will put this transcript into the record. I'm not going to let you read 3 pages here.
It's not 3 pages, Your Honor. It's about another 5 lines.
The
It just
part
goes to
that
the
you
top of the
brought
next
to
page.
my attention is on page 15, not where you're reading.
Colloquy between between Dr. Russell and Mr. Brennan was specific to dog bite wounds. It was specific to Dr. Russell's understanding of whether or not Dr. La Posada had been retained by the defense, whether she was a defense expert, whether she had written a report, and whether she opined about dog bites and dog bite wounds. And after she was asked if she had been provided any reports by the defense by the defense attorneys specifically from Dr. La Posada related to dog bite wounds, Dr. Russell said, no, I haven't been. And to summarize her statements, which the court has in front of it, Dr. Russell went on and said, I really wanted to see what Dr. La Posada had to say about these dog bite wounds. I really wanted to read her report. But no, I was never provided her report or reports by the defense. And of course, Your Honor, as the court knows, that is standard operating procedure. I don't trade reports between and among experts because obviously I want independent analysis. I don't want to cross-contaminate any opinions, et cetera, and be accused of doing so. So of course we didn't provide a report from Dr. La Posada to Dr. Russell. But Dr. Russell's intellectual curiosity was then extracted from the witness stand, and the jurors heard all of that. So then days later, not weeks, not months, 3 days later, after eliciting testimony from Dr. Russell about Dr. La Posada having a report, being hired by the defense on the issue of dog bites and not providing that report to Dr. Russell, the Commonwealth then moves to exclude the very testimony that he was eliciting from Dr. Russell, leaving the jurors with a very, very deep and irremediable misimpression. They used it tactically as a sword and a shield. And that's burden shifting. That leaves the jury with the impression that Dr. La Posada was consulted by the defense, number one, that she wrote a report, number two, that the report was about dog bites, number three, that she didn't provide that report to other experts, number four, and the reason she didn't, obviously, is because her opinion, Dr. La Posada's opinion, would be harmful to the defense. That's the only reasonable interpretation of those facts. And the Commonwealth has taken advantage of that. The Commonwealth's questioning of Dr. Russell about Dr. La Posada and her report and her opinions about dog bite wounds specifically was deliberate, and it left the jury with an open question. We know they consulted her. We know it was about dog bites. This is how the jurors are thinking about it now. We know they consulted her. We know it was about dog bites. They hid the report from Dr. Russell because they didn't want her to know about it. Ergo, must be harmful to defense. Now we've got Dr. La Posada on the stand. Her credentials are peerless, absolutely peerless. They've got possibly the most qualified medical examiner in the country, certainly on the Eastern Seaboard, right in front of them, about 6 feet away, and the defense is not going to ask a single question about her opinions concerning dog bites when she reviewed the entire autopsy. How is the jury going to conceive that? How is that going to land with them? The answer is they're going to think, they have no choice but to think, the only reasonable explanation is, if Dr. La Posada's opinion helped the defense, they would ask her. If they don't ask her, it's because whatever Dr. La Posada says about that right arm and those wounds, it's got to be harmful to the defense. They would absolutely ask the question. So the Commonwealth got to have it both ways. They got to ask Dr. Russell about Dr. La Posada and imply that Dr. La Posada had opinions about dog bite wounds, and then they have it the other way, which is, let's ask the court if she will exclude Dr. La Posada from testifying about the very issue that they brought up in front of Dr. Russell. That cannot stand. That ensures, it reasonably ensures that the jury will misrepresent or misunderstand the import of why we're not asking Dr. La Posada about her expert opinion, especially as it specifically pertains to dog bite wounds. I want to talk for just a second, and that has, by the way, that has constitutional implications. Ms. Reed is entitled to a fair trial, not a fair trial that the Commonwealth designs, not a fair trial that the Commonwealth curates, but a fair trial. Regarding Dr. La Posada's credentials, we went back through, specific to the court's questions yesterday, her resume. There are no fewer than 13 classes, 13, that she has taught, specific to wound pattern recognition that have included dog bite recognition. On page 7, she was the course director for medical legal death investigation. That was in 2013. She taught about dog bite recognition in that case, or in that course. She was a thesis advisor for Master of Science Graduate Medical School, Boston University School of Medicine. Taught about dog bites. Staying with page 7. Forensic pathology, course director in pathology. Course 205. Taught about dog bites. Member of Quality Assurance Committee, Training Division of Trauma and Surgical Critical Care, teaching on the issue of wound recognition, animal bites, and specific to dog bites. Pediatric forensic pathology, Texas Homicide Symposium. She was a presenter in 1989. She taught about the issue of dog bites as it relates to pediatrics, children, dog bites in children. Forensic aspects of physical child abuse as related to being left with dogs that can injure a child. Dog bites, dog bite recognition. These are all classes taught by Dr. LaPosada on the issue of dog bites to other medical professionals. The one that stands out, however, and I'm not going to go through the other 9 or 10 or 11, the one that stands out is 2015 and 2016, 2 courses. The name of the course, Emergency Room Forensics, Evidence and Patterned Injuries. New England chapter of the International Association of Forensic Nurses, taught in Norwood, Massachusetts, both times, specific to dog bites and the issue of dog bites as seen by emergency room physicians, how they should handle them, what they should do with them, how they should view them, what to look for in terms of pattern recognition. She's eminently qualified. I will leave the court with one thought. The court indicated when qualifying Dr. Russell, one of the preeminent things that the court mentioned in qualifying Dr. Russell is that Dr. Russell utilized a methodology that the court sanctioned and quoted and said the methodology that she used of wound pattern recognition, dealing with differential diagnosis, utilizing and interpreting dog bites by the method of exactly what Dr. Russell did. Differential diagnosis is something that the court said was exactly why the court sanctioned Dr. Russell and blessed Dr. Russell as a qualified expert, and that's exactly what Dr. LaPosada testified yesterday she utilized and utilizes in coming to her opinions and conclusions. Going back to the open door issue, obviously she's eminently qualified, but Your Honor, this cannot stand. The Commonwealth cannot have it both ways. They cannot walk up and say and leave the impression with the jurors that Dr. LaPosada opined about the dog wounds, but we're not able to hear it. We, the jurors, are not able to hear it because obviously that is something that is her opinion, whatever it might be, is harmful to the defense. When in truth and in fact, it's exactly the opposite. Dr. LaPosada's opinion has never wavered. Those injuries on John O'Keefe's arm are from a dog. Period. Full stop. Anything less than presenting that to the jury at this point would be to perpetrate an intentional fraud on this jury. Ms. Reed is entitled to more. She's entitled to better. She's entitled to the evidence.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
The pattern of conduct that stands out is persistent, repetitive, contrary to court rulings and court orders, and deliberate. And that is, the defense uses their witnesses to vouch for their own credibility. They use their witnesses to introduce information they know is not admissible, and they use their witnesses to introduce otherwise inadmissible hearsay. Dr. Russell took the stand, and she was led into answers where she was vouching for her own credibility. Dr. Russell promoted herself not only as an expert, but through the defense's questions as virtually the only expert in America who has the expertise to give this type of opinion. It is the defendant's tactics that open these doors that they then want closed. The defense had Dr. Russell all but assure the jury that she uniquely was in the position to give any type of opinion regarding dog bites. Inevitably, when I asked Dr. Russell, and I began asking her about her credentials, whether she thought that she was exclusive, and I mentioned Dr. LaPosada, she denied ever reading anything about Dr. LaPosada. I did not specify whether she read an opinion about a dog bite. I asked if she had heard about Dr. LaPosada. She denied it, and then she told us that she knew about Dr. Sheridan. Unsolicited, then added that Dr. Sheridan, involved in a previous proceeding, believed that the bites were consistent with dog bites. I don't know how she became aware of Dr. Sheridan's testimony, and since the defense doesn't speak to her about these things, she must have watched it on her own. But inevitably, she introduced inadmissible hearsay and inadmissible opinions. And so the sum zero here is that Dr. Russell has denied that she saw anything relative to Dr. LaPosada, ensured that she was exclusively qualified, and introduced an improper opinion.
All right, hang with us for just a second as that feed is, all right, got unstuck.
About her specific experience, she did not provide a basis, and so her opinions regarding dog bites should not be permitted in this trial.
Just to clear up the record, two things stand out about that speech. Mr. Brennan literally just said, I didn't elicit any information about dog bites. I just asked about her experience. Question by Mr. Brennan.
That's not what I said. That is
Excuse
not
me.
No, I'm not going to.
So I heard what Mr. Brennan said. You don't need to tell me what Mr. Brennan said, but go ahead to your
argument. How about if I quote
argument.
his words? How about that? Question. And so you think of all those forensic pathologists, medical examiners, and you think qualification and experience itself is not enough to qualify somebody to give an opinion on a photograph about the genesis of a wound related to dog bites. The question was specific to dog bites. That's how he introduced the subject matter to Dr. Russell. Then his next question was, have you ever heard of a doctor named Dr. LaPosada? Those were his words. Then he goes on, I think he also just said that he did not elicit information about other individuals, including Dr. Sheridan or anybody else. Question by Mr. Brennan. Were you ever told what other people's opinions might be regarding those photographs? That's the question that she was answering when she said, quote, I'm aware that there was a Dr. Sheridan involved in a previous proceeding, and he believed that those were consistent with dog bites. That was in relation or in response to Mr. Brennan's specific question. She didn't just elicit that. She didn't volunteer it. She said it because he asked her. And that was all by design. The entire thing has been by design. He elicited the information suggesting that Dr. LaPosada was being hidden from Dr. Russell because her opinion would harm the defense. He left that with her on purpose, then turned around and 3 days later said, and by the way, the defense should be disallowed from using Dr. LaPosada to talk about the very dog bite wounds that I asked Dr. Russell about. That cannot stand in this courtroom.
Go ahead.
It's helpful if you read the entire thing in context, which I won't do. We always have a right to object to an inadmissible opinion. So the suggestion that somehow an ambush here is not only misplaced, it's strategic by the defense to try to create an error. It's improper.
All right. I'll be out in 10 minutes on this, and we'll get started right away with Dr. LaPosada.
All right, the court, please.
All right, as it appears there, the judge going to take a 10-minute recess, and we'll start the trial already, starting off nice and spicy this morning, contentious as they are getting ready to hopefully rest on their cases, and 8 weeks into the Karen Read retrial. All right, as you see there in the right side, upper right side of your screen, U.S. reps from California are speaking on what's what's happening in LA after 4 nights of protests against ICE. Let's go ahead and listen here live now on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Through the process, that it's children, then all of a sudden they don't support the deportation of those individuals. Donald Trump sold it as going after criminals, but they're going to Home Depots and car washes and restaurants. I don't know how many MS-13 members are working at car washes, Home Depots, and restaurants. So, and that's why you see the backlash of like the individual who was detained that was a restaurant worker in a red state, in a red city, and then all of a sudden her community came forward to help advocate for her. So I think that the Democrats understand that it's not about all immigrants. It's that how Donald Trump's trying to portray immigrants. Next question. Go ahead.
Senator Fetterman posted on X. He said, "My party loses the moral high ground when we refuse to condemn setting cars on fire, destroying buildings, and assaulting law enforcement." How would you react to that?
Well,
all right, as California reps are taking questions now from the media, as promised, we're going to get you out to Fayetteville right now. As their press conference is taking place, President Trump is heading to Fort Bragg later this afternoon to give remarks there with the Army celebrating 250 years. In the meantime, they have a number of Dems from the state, NC Dems, talking about many of the benefits from the Trump administration. And let's go ahead and listen in here live on Live Impact News.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hardy, and welcome, everyone. My name's Gerard Falls, and I am a combat veteran. I served in the 82nd Airborne honorably right here, defending liberty at Fort Alvin Bragg, living out the Army values every single day. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I'd like to repeat a couple of those: honor, integrity, and personal courage. In the Army, I found working people, everyday people, coming together from all walks of life for the greater purpose, a greater purpose, a commitment to a more just and perfect union dedicated to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And like so many others, that service didn't end when I got out of the Army in 2008. For those of us who are so fortunate to have come back home after service, our commitment to those values, to our community, to our nation, to our Constitution itself continues. Our obligations to all of our neighbors continues. I have a serious question for the folks behind me, for example, and those who have joined us today. Were any of you paid to be here? And I'm not talking to the reporters. Were any of you paid to be here? No. Were any of you ordered to be here today? No. That may sound like silly questions, but that's exactly what's going to be happening today on post when Donald Trump lines up a bunch of soldiers, a man who betrays them and the Army values with every breath that he makes, calling them losers and suckers, lines them up in a parade field on post to serve as a captive audience for his boring and egotistical musings. The United States military exists to selflessly defend the Constitution of the United States of America, not to assist in the preservation of one selfish man's ego who would turn us against each other for his own personal preservation and enrichment. One final note. There's an open secret in military communities. Veterans, military families, and even active duty service members are the backbone of organizing for progressive values and working people at the community level. And this work is ongoing, and it will continue. We know the values that we're fighting for, and our efforts have no fatigue. We will keep on organizing and fighting for our values each and every day. That's what democracy looks like. Thank you, and happy 250th anniversary to the United States Army.
And last up today to speak to you all, we have Dr. Vicki Andrews. She serves as our Veterans and Military Caucus Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hold this. Absolutely. I can stand. So, you know, you can tell I'm old school because I'm not doing this on my phone. I'm old school. So today is another tough day in our country's history. The way this administration governs, seemingly by executive order at a dizzying pace, is breathtaking. Now, active duty military members are being sent to Los Angeles to protect federal personnel and property. active duty military members are being sent to Los Angeles. They're going to serve alongside the National Guard presence that wasn't even requested. It's a stark contrast to the delayed response in deploying troops during the January 6th attack on our Capitol. And now, the idea of arresting a sitting governor, no matter where you stand politically, that's something that should make everybody stop and think. From unidentified federal agents detaining people on the streets, you know, the ones with the masks or the face coverings, to mass firing of experienced civil servants, to giving virtually unrestricted access to personal information like Social Security numbers, it's all happening right now. Active duty troops are being used in ways that feels dangerously close to policing our citizens. That's not what they signed up for. On top of that, tariffs are driving up costs, leaving everyday people to bear the burden as prices climb. It's disheartening to hear some people cheer this kind of leadership. The reality is setting in for others, especially veterans. I had conversations with veterans across our state, including those who voted for this president. Many regret their decision. They never thought the administration would backtrack on the promises made to them when they signed up to serve our country. Now they're genuinely worried. They're concerned about whether health care that they were promised will still be there when they need it. They wonder if the Social Security system they paid into will still be available to them. And most of all, they fear that the freedoms they fought for so hard to defend are starting to slip away. Now I say they are worried. I am worried because I am a veteran also. And honestly, we all should be. And our chair, please.
Any questions from the folks that are here today? I'm hoping we might have covered it.
I'd like to know more on the reaction to President Trump authorizing the deployment of National Guardsmen to LA to handle those protests, as well as the U.S. Marine.
Dr. Andrews, would you like to take it?
I know you mentioned some of that, but seeing deployment of U.S. soldiers on the streets of Los Angeles.
So first of all, I would say a couple of things. That is not what we signed up for when we signed up. And to do that without the governor asking for it, because the governor's on the ground. I have friends that are there right now, so I feel a little bit passionate about this. Soldiers are going to do what they're supposed to do. They follow legal orders. This is a tough one for them because they're conflicted and they're worried. It looks like when you see it that that's all of Los Angeles. It really is not. It feels to me like it's a manufactured something to lead to something else. But the ones that I know are doing it because they're supposed to follow orders, but they're not happy. I have friends that work there. They're not happy either. It's not what they're asking for. And so I think that we need to pay attention and call it out, because it's just like the first step on a slippery slope, and there's no telling where it will go, and none of this sounds good to me.
What do you need to hear from President Trump to ease any concerns that you may have right now about cuts, federal funding cuts, job cuts? Is there anything that you want to hear from President Trump today when he makes his remarks that could bring some ease to the concerns that you guys share here today?
I'll answer and I'll let someone answer. For me, I don't think it matters what we hear, because I don't believe what he says. And I think he's demonstrated that he's not truthful and doesn't have a whole lot of integrity. So I don't think it matters. He can say what he wants to say. I'm not believing it. I'm sorry.
No. Dr. Just take it away, truly. I think that his actions prove more than his words, and right now we are seeing this administration go in and single-handedly try to destroy and rip health care away from millions of people across this state and across this country, trying to take away SNAP benefits from 2.9 million people in North Carolina, 1.3 million that are children that are also impacted veterans' families. And I think that right now we are not seeing an administration that's listening to the needs of the people on the ground. It's listening to the billionaires and the purse strings in Washington, D.C. that are controlling him right now.
Could y'all talk a little bit about the parade planned for this weekend in D.C. and just kind of what the North Carolina Democratic Party's take is on that, how they're viewing the use of our armed forces in that manner?
It's politicizing our armed forces in a way that I don't think we've seen a former president do, at least to this extent. And I also believe that it's a lavish birthday party that he's throwing for himself. To the point that Dr. Andrews made earlier, I don't think he cares about anybody else but himself in this instance. Dr. Hardy, anything else?
Well,
and the cross.
Right. I was going to say, like, when he's touting this alleged savings of all of this money from DOGE, none of which is actually doing anything to help with fraud, waste, and abuse, because that parade itself is a clear indication of fraud, waste, and abuse. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to be a king, and so he thinks that he should get a kingly procession down the streets of Washington, D.C. This is costing us millions. This is making us less safe because it's taking active duty military personnel and machinery and bringing it into DC. So we're, and all because he wants to be a king. And so we have to push back against this. The people have already said that this is not what they want. The governor, to what Dr. Andrews said, did not ask for this in LA. This man is singularly focused on building this bizarre, weird legacy, and it's coming at the expense of all of our safety and many of our tax dollars.
Doing it for Putin and Kim Jong-un.
My next question is for Gerard, just as a veteran and someone who served at the 82nd and Dr. Andrews as well. Can you guys talk a little bit, you used the phrase captive audience with the soldiers on Fort Bragg today. Can you talk, from your perspective as a soldier, what it's like when a president or any other member of the administration comes and talks about a political agenda? What is a soldier's place in that?
Absolutely. So in Christmas Day of 2006, I was called up because we were a rapid response unit to a 3-month deployment in Iraq. It was called the Surge. That turned into an 18-month deployment, and when we returned, I was actually exposed to those burn pits that were talked about earlier during that time. When we returned, I was just about to get out, and President Bush wanted to show up and give a speech on the parade field for all the soldiers. And in 2008, let me tell you, the soldiers were not feeling particularly friendly about what they had just been through and how they were treated. All our weapons were completely disarmed, and we sat there on orders, passing out in a parade field. I can only imagine the conversations that are happening between soldiers today while they're standing out there listening to this man just flex his ego. I can only imagine the conversations, and I would encourage them to share those conversations. But if you're going to go there today, go speak to some of those soldiers. They may be off the record, but us veterans can tell you exactly what it's like to stand out there to serve one man's ego when we're in the military to serve our nation.
Thank you all very much for being here today. Oh, Dr. Andrews, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Y'all have been so eloquent today. I wonder if any of y'all are going to be speaking on Saturday at any rally or...
We can get the information.
Yeah, we'll get your list.
Okay. The reporters have more questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a No King's Day. That's right. Here Saturday.
Are you speaking at that?
Oh,
All right, friends, as things are wrapping up there in Fayetteville from North Carolina Dems speaking out before President Trump's arrival this afternoon at Fort Bragg. We want to take you out now to the NBC station in Charleston, a live feed as they are covering a tornado warning in the Charleston area until about 10:15. Let's go to them live and listen in here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
A tornado warning. And Jed, I know we've been watching this line of storms. We knew this was a possibility. Something else we're watching, of course, portions of Colleton County, not only underneath a tornado warning. If I move up here, this is a severe thunderstorm warning, right? Expiring at 10:15. We'll let you know if they extend that or not. But along this long line, you really see, I mean, it has stayed together since early this morning, right?
Right, Grace. So let's reset the stage here, kind of zoom out so we can give everyone who's just now tuning in a quick update. So essentially, the reason we're on air right now, 9:54, not a normal time for us to be on air. We have a squall line pushing through the low country. earlier there's a little bit of an inflow notch within that squall line, which again is the area where we could see some rotation earlier. It doesn't look as definitive now. That's good news. We hope that continues. But that's why we're on the air. There's a tornado warning in place because of that. The National Weather Service called it out. They spotted it. And they put us under a tornado warning until 10:15. So we're about 20 minutes out here. They'll either let this expire or they could potentially extend it. Right now, my suspicion is they will let this expire because when we turn on velocity, Grace, it just doesn't really have a strong signature that we would be looking for. Remember, velocity is essentially when we're looking for areas of rotation, our reds and our greens really close together, especially if they're brighter. And right now it looks to me like it's very outflow dominant. And what that means for us is that this is mainly a gusty wind, straight line damaging wind threat. So even if there is no tornado actively with the storm right now, it's still a danger because we could be looking at damaging winds in excess of 58 miles per hour. So that's also a big concern with this storm.
I know, and this is once again, if you're just now joining us, if you're hearing that rumble of thunder, if you're hearing some of that rain headed your way, yes, you are underneath that tornado warning. And we're still going to go ahead and say just make sure in your safe space. Early this morning, this is 9:56. People are up and about getting their day started. You may want to go ahead and hold off on getting on the roadways, especially you mentioned 17, right? Even if you're in some of these areas driving, this is heavy, heavy rain, guys. This is some high wind gust outside. Some of those storms I know yesterday produced some damage a bit closer towards Somerville. This is that same idea early this morning. So make sure you're paying attention. This is going to continue to move through. We knew it'd be getting to the metro area closer to around 11 or 12 o'clock. Still looks that way right now. This is moving pretty fast. So even if you are underneath this tornado warning, yes, we're really not seeing that rotation we were just a couple of scans ago. But it's still some heavier wind, right? Straight line winds can cause a lot of damage. We've seen these with storms in the past, even just yesterday.
Exactly. Well, let's go ahead and pull up that velocity again and just talk about that damaging wind threat. I'm going to step back over to the green screen. We can point out some communities that are currently in the path of this. Again, this is kind of out mainly in no man's land so far, but again, it eventually will be approaching some more highly populated areas. But right now, again, this entire area, especially right along 17, you need to be in your tornado safe place. I know I've been talking about weak rotation with this at this point, but you should still take your tornado precaution. What does that mean? Get as many walls in between you and the outside of your house as possible. Stay away from the windows. So we have Ashepoo siding here. We have Wiggins. It's moving through that area right now. Ashepoo up to the north. So again, a lot of these areas, if you have family or friends in these areas, it's a bit more rural. Go ahead and shoot them a text, even better. Give them a call, give them a heads up. There's a tornado warning in place, and it would not be a bad time to go ahead and seek shelter. And then additionally, we talked about 17, like Jacksonboro, for example. If you have family or friends here, this is more populated, and it would be best to just stay put where you are. Get as many walls in between you and the outside of your house as possible. Like I mentioned, stay away from the windows, because even if there is no tornado within the squall line, we could still see that damaging wind threat. And then additionally, with a squall line moving through the low country, we can get periods where it rotates a little bit and we get concerned about it. That's why the National Weather Service issued this tornado warning. And then we also get periods where it winds down and then it can go right back up again. In fact, Grace, why don't we zoom in on this little area right here that's tracking right over 17 and just get a closer look at this. Pull up velocity on that too, just to make sure that isn't a new area that could be rotating. It might be. We'll keep an eye on this, but right now, again, I'm mainly looking at a damaging wind threat with this. This is right over the 17 here, just off to the east of Clover Hill Road, excuse me. And this is continuing to push off to the east. So many locations in this area we do need to be watching out for. And that includes, you know, places like Wadmalaw, even Johns Island, even eventually West Ashley. We're watching the progression of this squall line as it eventually is tracking off to the east, Grace. So again, tornado warning in place for the next about 15 minutes. We're going to stay with it until it either expires or they potentially issue a new one. But so far, things are looking a little bit more tame now than they did about 10-15 minutes ago. So that's some good progression there with this storm, Grace.
Hey, Jed, I mean, yeah, you're right. Something I want to go ahead and give you an update on. They have continued the tornado warning. This is from the National Weather Service chat right now. This was dropped around 9:57, right? So that tornado warning still remains in effect until 10:15 for portions of Colleton and a little sliver here, you notice, a bit closer towards other counties as well. So once again, we're going to go ahead and continue with you all morning long until this is lifted. 10:15 right now. That looks like the expiration time. Once again, if you're within this tornado warning, we're not really seeing that rotation signature, but something else we are watching, high wind gusts. And those straight line winds can still cause a lot of damage just because you're not within this tornado warning. I'm going to move up a little bit further right near Walterboro, other inland parts of Colleton County. You're within that severe thunderstorm warning, right? I know we just got a check and see if there's any damage reports. Right now, we're not getting any, but let us know what you see. You're our eyes and ears out there, what's going on. But something, yeah, we're going to continue to stay with you here as we continue the rest of this morning. Got about 15 minutes left in this, so within those areas, right? And like Jed mentioned, this is an area that's not highly populated, but if you know someone within this area, just make sure you give them a call. Say, hey, you're within this tornado warning. Even if there is no rotation, I'm going to go ahead and say, Jed, this looks like we're seeing some high wind gusts.
Absolutely.
And this was something, once again, yesterday. Remember, we were seeing those higher wind gusts, a lot of damage in Somerville. That same idea to it as you're waking up early this morning. So 10 o'clock right now. Let's go through some of the places that are seeing some of that heavier rain. Right near Wiggins, if anything, you're dealing with higher wind gusts, heavier rain. A bit closer towards Willtown Bluff, Barrowville, Adams Run, right? A bit closer towards Parker's Ferry, Jacksonboro near 17 as well. You guys would be next. I'm sure you're kind of hearing it roar right now as we move through these next 15 minutes or so. But you're within this tornado warning. Other warnings on the map. Let's go ahead and reset, give you that wider perspective, what we're seeing.
As they are resetting, just want to let you know that you are watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus just after 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. We are dipping into live coverage of the NBC station out of Charleston with the tornado warning, as the meteorology team there saying is going to be until at least 10:15. Carlene, my producer here, is also from the Charleston area. And Car, weigh in on this area. You know this area as well.
I do. It's a little bit out there. It's not. It's more rural of an area. So you can see on their little map it says like Ravenel, Hollywood. I know that area a little bit more, and that's about. I mean, you're getting out there in the rural part. So if this moves east, that's when you start to get a little bit more concerned. That's when you're going to hit Johns Island and West Ashley, and once it gets further east, that's the lot more populated area, so we're just going to keep an eye on it.
So the fortunate thing here is that it is, like he said, kind of no man's land, less populated there, but as they keep an eye on things, monitoring it moving east, so are we. Again, dipping into live coverage here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus with a tornado warning in effect until about 10:15 near the Charleston area. Let's go ahead and listen live.
Like a gusty outflow event, but just like we were talking about with squall lines, they can spin up really fast, go away really fast, and then come back. So we do need to watch out for the potential for that as it continues to push off to the east, eventually into way more populated areas. I'm also waiting to see if they are going to potentially cancel the tornado warning. It looks like they have canceled this tornado warning, so they're agreeing with us, and the National Weather Service has been examining this storm, and we're looking at mainly just gusty outflow winds at this point. But if something changes and we end up getting another quick spin up, we will be right back here and we'll have more details with that. So a quick recap for us, kind of setting the stage again. Now you notice that tornado warning box, it is now gone from our Storm Team 2 Viper radar. What we're looking at is a line of severe warning thunderstorms that are mainly producing gusty outflow winds. Not seeing a very definitive sign of any rotation. The Weather Service agrees, so they canceled that tornado warning early. It was set to expire at 10:15. Now it's 10:03 and they expired it now. So that way we can get that off the board. We're looking good as it continues to push off to the east. We had showers and thunderstorms earlier this morning. It probably helped stabilize the atmosphere, especially for some of our inland locations. For example, Somerville, I know you woke up with a little bit of rain there on the road. So as that pushes through, strong to severe thunderstorms, but tornado threat not looking as likely. So that's the good news here. But again, if anything else changes, both Grace and I will be right back with more updates. Plus, we have News 2 Midday. That is coming up at 11. We'll continue to keep you posted through this event. Thanks for watching.
All right, good news there out of the Charleston area. A tornado warning coming up, expiring much earlier than expected. Again, pretty severe storms there, though, out of the Charleston area. Want to take a look now in our own area, closer to home, looking at Carowinds. pretty cloudy out there, but it is so far a decent morning. Carlene, I was just saying that tornado warning just expired.
Oh,
so
expired
10
early.
minutes
Okay.
before they should have, but so good news there.
Yes.
And but we're monitoring things here. Ooh, a little shaking on the camera over Carowinds, but we are going to see potential storms again later tonight as we are now into this kind of summer pattern, if you will. So
It's June in the Carolinas.
right.
That's what happens.
Right. So settle in, friends. If you just moved to the area, we have these pop-up storms in the afternoon.
All the
Gets
time.
pretty hot and sticky.
Yep.
We
And
have
they're fast too. They're
yeah,
in and out.
in and out. Going to have some condensation.
Yep.
And in the morning, you have levels of sticky.
Yeah.
Sticky, muggy.
It's sticky first thing.
Yeah.
It's first thing in the morning. It's a
So
hot tub outside.
there you go. Pool weather if you can
Mm-hmm.
deal with it. All right, we do know that Secretary of Defense Hegseth is taking the stand this week in front of a House Appropriations meeting. Right now, that House committee hearing is underway as we speak. It looks like he's going to be testifying, really talking about the budget for the military. Is sort of his first time kicking off testimony now before Congress to talk about the department's budget. It's going to be one of several congressional hearings that Secretary Hegseth will be attending this week. Let's go ahead and listen in here now on Live Impact News.
That left. So I'll begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Secretary, the department recently issued a memo reducing the civilian personnel at the Office of Director of Operational Test and Evaluation by about 74% and reduced the budget by 80%. Now, everyone on this subcommittee can attest that I've been beating the drum for reductions in DoD personnel, civilian personnel, since I became a member of the committee, and that's a long time. In fact, I have a bill that would require the department to reduce civilian staff by 15% based on merit. However, I think we need to be intentional and clear-eyed about the functions that we reduce. As you know, DOT&E was established by Congress in '83 to centralize and strengthen operational testing, ensure that weapon systems are rigorously evaluated for combat effectiveness, suitability, and to address deficiencies in oversight and standardization within the Department of Defense. And there's a lot of examples of DTO&E catching flaws that would have catastrophic consequences for our military, including loss of life. One example is the M2, M3 Bradley, which was designed to transport troops, provides fire support. The Army approved a system touting the armor, firepower, and mobility. However, when the independent testing was done, it was found out the aluminum armor was not a good idea and was susceptible to failure. And early versions caught fire and burned. And so obviously we made changes and rectified that, and the Bradley's been a valuable part of our military ever since. But we share the same goals to create a more efficient, leaner DoD, but with things like Golden Dome coming along, we want to make sure that the technologies we pick are going to work and that we fund them accordingly. So I understand the reduction is seeking to remove duplicative functions. We're not interested in delays, and I know that that's really high on your list. However, a layer of independent testing is, I think, important. In light of that, with the reduction, how will you ensure that the military services tasked with testing and evaluating their own programs will not revert to past behavior which showed they would approve systems in order to meet operational needs or budget timelines? So with that, Mr. Secretary, see if we can have an answer to that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. How we evaluated DOT&E was a reflection of the overall approach we take in the department, which is how efficiently do we operate? Where are the bottlenecks? We talk about the things you talk about every single day. How do we get how do we get systems, platforms, future capabilities in the hands of warfighters as quickly as possible? And so a review led by myself, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, our friends at DOJ who've worked with us, have helped us look and identify places where we might find efficiencies. Now, I work, and my hands are directly in the middle of that, to ensure that as we seek those efficiencies and reduce those redundancies, we're not doing so in a way that undermines our capabilities or safety for warfighters in the future. DOT&E after we got rid of a lot of the really low-hanging fruit of tens of billions of contracts and things that we've reduced, that were duplicative, that were completely wasteful, that were creating PowerPoint presentations that no one was looking at, you start to look at things like DOT&E, testing and evaluation, which in a headline sounds quite significant, and it can be in many ways. But when you ask the services, you ask the joint staff, you talk to the comptroller and CAPE, and you go across the other undersecretaries, there's a universal recognition that DOT&E's mission has bloated and expanded well beyond the scope of what it was supposed to be, and as a result was expanding by months, and sometimes even more than that, the amount of time it was taking for systems to actually make it in the hands of warfighters. So you still have services and other places doing that testing and evaluation. This remains in place at a right size. So we see it as a right sizing of DOT&E. So it still provides that oversight and ensures across the joint force we're recognizing the challenges, but it doesn't add unnecessary time. So we recognize why it was created. We want it to do its job, but not more than its job. And that's what we believe it's doing by reforming it.
Well, thank you for that answer. Obviously, as we expect new systems, new technologies to come online quickly, we want to make sure this committee that we're funding it properly and make sure that you can handle the volume in which that you're anticipating, especially with a new technology like Golden Dome, which, you know, we still, as the ranking member pointed out, we still haven't seen a clear definition of what it is and what it's a strategic theater system, lower 48, Hawaii, Alaska, the rest of it, and how these layered systems are going to be put out there to defend the country and to make sure that we're not spending a lot of money unnecessarily. So testing and evaluation is going to be an important part of that. With that, I recognize Ms. McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, I plan to ask you some budget questions about the following: the cost of the Qatar plane, where the money from the Army's parade is coming from, or the National Guard deployments to the border, where that funding is coming from. I honor and celebrate the United States Army, but I'd like to know how much this parade is going to cost. I have sent the department letters on several occasions on this, and I'm still waiting for a response. But then something else happened this weekend, and it needs to be addressed, and that is the President's premature and escalatory decision to deploy not only the National Guard troops to Los Angeles, but active duty Marines as well. Mr. Secretary, we're both from Minnesota. I was in the Twin Cities during the riots that followed the murder of George Floyd. Tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets for days. Governor Walz made the decision to call up the Minnesota National Guard. At no point did we need the citizens of Minnesota request that the Marines be deployed. Our state and local law enforcement, along with our National Guard, who have worked on crowd control, they were more than enough. They were more than capable of handling this situation. History has proven that law enforcement and the National Guard are more than capable of handling situations more volatile than what happened this weekend. We all see the continuous loops on TV, but this looks nothing like the George Floyd protests or the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles in 1992. Mr. Secretary, this is a deeply unfair position to put our Marines in. Their service should be honored. It should not be exploited. The President has issued an executive order and talked about deploying troops across the country. Los Angeles County has 17,000 law enforcement personnel, and the state of California has 24,000 National Guard troops. So that's why the Los Angeles Chief of Police to say, and I quote, "The possible arrival of federal military forces in Los Angeles is absent a clear coordination, presents a significant logistical operational challenge for those of us who are charged with safeguarding the city," the end of his quote. As I mentioned before, in Minnesota, we train for those things together. So there's no need for the Marines to be deployed. So here are my budget questions, though. What is the current cost for what is taking place in California, and how is it going to affect this budget or the budget we're currently serving under? How much are these deployments going to cost for both the Marines and the National Guard? And what training or duties are not taking place because of these deployments. Where in your limited budget, sir, are you going to find, in the remainder of this fiscal year, are you going to pull the money to cover these deployments? What holes are being created?
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for the question. You are right. We are both originally from Minnesota, which is why I recall 2020 quite well, when Governor Walz abandoned a police precinct and allowed it to be burned to the ground, and also allowed 5 days of chaos to occur inside the streets of Minneapolis. The police precinct, ma'am, was abandoned and burned to the ground. And because of that, the National Guard was eventually far too late mobilized. And President Trump recognizes a situation like that, improperly handled by a governor, like it was by Governor Walz, if it gets out of control, is a bad situation for the citizens of any location. So in Los Angeles, we believe that ICE, which is a federal law enforcement agency, has the right to safely conduct operations in any state and any jurisdiction in the country, especially after 21 million illegals have crossed our border under the previous administration. ICE ought to be able to do its job, whether it's Minneapolis or Los Angeles.
I have limited time. I asked a budget
and they
question.
Are being,
Could the Secretary please address the budget? Thank you.
You asked about the situation in Los Angeles, and we believe ICE agents should be allowed to be safe in doing their operations, and we have deployed National Guard and the Marines to protect them in the execution of their duties, because we ought to be able to enforce immigration law in this country, unlike what Governor Walz did in 2020. There are 17,000 LAPD, you mentioned that. There would be 18,000 if not for the defund movement that folks like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have implemented. The police chief said she was overwhelmed,
If the Secretary's not going to ask the budgetary questions, I will yield back my time if the Secretary refuses to answer the budgetary questions I put before him. They're important. What training missions aren't happening? Where are you pulling the money from? And how are you planning this in the moving forward? These are budget questions that affect this committee and the decisions we're going to be making in a couple of hours. If you're not going to answer them, please let the chairman know, and I will take back my time and I will yield it back to the chairman.
Mr. Secretary, I want to just let us know what accounts you're pulling the money to fund.
Thankfully, unlike the previous administration, we've got a 13% increase in our defense budget, and we will have the capability to cover down on contingencies, which is something the National Guard and the Marine plan for. So we have the funding to cover down on contingencies, especially ones as important as maintaining law and order in a major American city. As far as training, all of the units on the ground have been fully trained in their capabilities of what they're executing on the ground.
For budgetary, if he needs to get back to the committee with the numbers, I'd appreciate it, both current and present.
Happy to submit them for the record.
Gentlemen will receive an answer to the question for the record. Gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, again, welcome. As I mentioned in my opening comments, I'm very concerned about retiring legacy systems. They need to be retired, no problem there, but doing it too fast and not having replacements coming online. I've got a particular concern where E3s, as my colleagues know, AWACS are. There's 31 of them in the fleet, or there were. 15 have been retired since 23. They fly out of Tinker Air Force Base for the most part, which is in my district, hence my parochial, but I think legitimate interest here. Very interested in seeing, and this committee's done some important work in positioning us to acquire and field E7s. It's not a new technology. Our friends in Australia use it. Our friends in the United Kingdom use it. It's much superior to what we have. And so, again, this is one of the areas where we're concerned where we don't have the budget information from OMB we'd like. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are on the platform and replacing them. Do you have any idea about the speed and costs that you're planning to move in that particular area going forward?
Well, I appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman. And priorities and decisions are what we're in the business of on the budget side, on the capability side. And I think President Trump has charged us with making the big, difficult decisions after a lot of deferred maintenance and deferred decisions. To ignore parochial priorities in large part and focus on what the department needs and where it needs it and when it needs it. And that means some tough calls. And there are platforms we've supported as a result, and there's some platforms and systems that we won't support going forward because the services have requested it, or we've identified those are systems and platforms that don't orient toward a future threat. I mean, we've learned a lot from what's happened in Ukraine. We've learned a lot from what China is attempting to do and the systems they're building. So if we have systems and platforms that are not survivable in the modern battlefield, or they don't give us an advantage in a future fight, we have to make the tough decisions right now. That's my job, that's the chairman's job, and it's our job to fund those new systems and make tough calls. So the E7 is an example of that. We're going to fund existing platforms that are there more robustly and make sure they're modernized. But we believe most of the ISR, or a great deal of the ISR in the future, will be space-based, and not in a scientific space-based we hope we'll get there, but in a we're funding capabilities that will surpass some of those airborne capabilities. So we're willing to continue to review things like the E7, but from our view, investments in existing systems that carry forward that capability alongside even bigger investments in space-based ISR gives us the kind of advantages we need on a future battlefield. I think
that's a fair point. I would point out, I've been on this committee a long time. I watched the U.S. Army waste $29 billion on the future combat system because it was going to be so great. And it didn't, and we wasted a ton of money. We got a platform here that works. Space is great. It's unknown. It's undeveloped. And I would just urge you to look at this pretty carefully as you make the decision. We certainly will as a committee. I don't know how much time I've got left because the clock's not running.
You're the chairman, so.
Well, that's I will try and be respectful to the committee and certainly respectful to our witnesses. I have one other quick question, if I may, and I think probably a lot of members have had these concerns. Look, I'm largely very much in favor of the hiring freezes and some of the things you've done personnel-wise. So this is not a criticism, but I do hear that we have certain exempt positions like aircraft mechanics, like firefighters. We're having a problem with that. Again, Fort Sill, I got the home of the field artillery and air defense artillery as well. It's a pretty military district. Nobody's being critical, but we're having a hard time getting, these are exempt categories, those filled. Can you sort of tell me where we're at on that? Because these are mission critical people.
It's a great question, sir. It's something we're paying very close attention to. In fact, we meet on it multiple times a week. It includes shipbuilding capabilities, child care centers. There are a lot of positions that affect our industrial base, our capabilities, or our families that we are working diligently to ensure we're getting those exceptions as quickly as possible, those waivers. But we're also trying to do right by right-sizing the civilian force, which has gotten too bloated too fast and has mostly been right-sized through voluntary separations through DRP. So I acknowledge that. And we can get you a full list of the exemptions as well to make sure you understand where we're making trade-offs.
I'd appreciate that very much, Mr. Secretary. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back. Thanks for your courtesy.
Thanks. Gentlemen, Mr. Lauro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to focus, Mr. Secretary, my question on submarines and our national security, our military shipbuilding, and as I said specifically, submarines, critical investment for national security and for the economy of my home state of Connecticut. This is a yes or no question, Mr. Secretary. Do you agree that continued investment in the Department of Defense in submarine production is in fact critical to the United States national security and military readiness?
Very critical.
Okay, so yes, thank you, and we agree. They'll continue to be a critical asset to deter adversaries, sustain the advantage we have in undersea domain, and the Defense Department should continue to support these programs. What is the status of the Department's investments in submarine programs?
14% increase in FY26 on the Columbia, and a substantial increase in the Virginia as well. So we're ensuring a submarine industrial base that has been left behind, that has been neglected, is fully invested to make sure we're speeding up on funding the submarines.
More than half, and you can go back to last December, but I want to move on. Do you know where our submarine production currently stands, and whether current production is sufficient to bridge the gap between current fleet size and projected need?
There is a gap, but we believe we are closing it, ma'am. Yes.
And if you can get to us the information about how, in fact, that you can close that gap, because we do not have any information or data that can substantiate what you're saying. Your department's initial budget proposal includes incremental funding for the Columbia-class submarine. Is that going to raise alarm bells across the defense industrial base by signaling a lack of commitment to the program?
No, we could not, ma'am, we could not be more committed to Columbia. The centrality in the triad, ensuring it delivers on time, it's central to the deterrent and the base of the United States. So
do you know how much of a financial hole this will create for the defense industrial base? Will there be a financial hole for the defense industrial base in 2026?
Certainly not based on our projections. There is not a hole. We're investing in Columbia robustly.
Okay, without numbers, it's my understanding the department is planning to move $3.1 billion for the Columbia class from 2026 and spread it over 2027 and 2028. This creates a serious problem for industry in the short term and hampers shipbuilders' ability to reach an adequate production rate. Have you been in contact with Electric Boat or with Huntington Ingalls about your plans?
Almost every day, our Deputy Secretary of Defense, alongside our Secretary of the Navy, are actively engaged with all of our shipbuilders and shipyards to make sure their needs not only are being met, but their shortfalls are being addressed so that we can close that gap in real time, which has existed.
So that you can really lay out for us the information and which we would like to get, what this committee needs to take a look at, because I know you believe that submarines are important, as I do, but getting the specific information about where we stand, what the production rate is, what gaps there may be. We're willing to listen to all of that because, in fact, in contrast to what your earlier statement was, we have, in fact, supported mightily the submarine industrial base from this committee. That has not been neglected. Do you have a plan for making the investments necessary to ramp up submarine production to the necessary elections? I would just tell you, as part of the December continuing resolution, Congress included $5.7 billion for the department to put on contract for 2 additional Block 4 and 1 Block 5 Virginia-class submarines. The Navy advised members that these funds were required to be placed on contract by February of 2025, yet the department did not put funding for the 2 additional Block 4 boats on contract until April 30th. So do we have a plan, do you have a plan for making the necessary investments to ramp up submarine production to the necessary levels? And what is that plan?
Ma'am, first of all, I want to thank this committee for the flexibility alongside FY25 and the continued resolution.
Well, I would hope you would thank this committee for the funding that it had made. We have made a serious investment. So your first statement is inaccurate. We have focused squarely on submarines, and we're now want to know where that is going and what your plan is for the continued advancements to meet production levels and make sure that that is an area that's covered for our national security.
Ma'am, I fully acknowledge the investment this committee has made in shipbuilding, and the challenge is our department under the previous administration squandered a lot of that by
Please, I want your plan. I've had difficulties with the prior administration, and I don't mind calling them out. What is your plan for the future? Can we get that in writing and on paper so that we know where you're going? Because we don't have anything today. We have zip, nada, and knowing where you're going. You could talk percentages. You can talk about whatever you want, but unless this committee sees dollars and cents and where you're going and what your plan is, then we may reconsider what you need to do to go forward. Give us the details.
Congresswoman, we have the details and we will provide them.
Well, then let's have them before and my hope is that we could get to it before we go to a markup within a few hours here today. I yield back my time, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady yields back her time. The Dean of the House, Chairman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, gentlemen and lady. Let me ask you about the stunning success of the Ukrainian drones of last week. Are we seeing the ushering in of a new era of warfare? The use of drones from afar. After all, these drones were smuggled into Russia, hidden for a great...
All right, at 10:30, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus as we take a peek in on Secretary of Defense Hegseth there testifying on Capitol Hill. You could see how hot it is getting, and now we're talking not about the weather inside the House committee meeting, talking about his budget and the budget for the military as they weigh things for votes to come up in a couple of hours. We will go back to that because we do know that is an important topic. Especially as of late. But right now, we want to talk about something a little bit more fun, something a little bit more exciting, a lot more exciting here in the Queen City. Panthers are at it. We're talking about football. Yes, we're a couple of months out before the season opener, but we need to talk about what our guys, our team members are doing. So Danielle Stein now in front of Bank of America Stadium, giving us the latest here on what we can look forward to, what you're looking forward to at camp there.
Yeah, today begins the final stage of the NFL's offseason workouts with the Carolina Panthers today reporting for mandatory mini camp. Now, although this is the first required time that the players are here back in Charlotte, we've been seeing a little bit of a new energy around this team so far this offseason. Going back just last week to OTAs first, we saw just about the entire roster reporting. Of course, all of those who were available, those who are healthy enough to participate. So really good attendance marks is a really good sign for things to come, but even off the field as well. We've been seeing a lot of players gelling and doing a lot of coming together and building those relationships. Even just this past weekend, Bryce Young hosted his annual youth football camp, which also did focus on mental health, and the turnout over 300 campers, which also speaks about the community's support of the team as well. But seeing other team members showing up, like head coach Dave Canales and a number of his teammates also showing up, that talks about the building of the relationships, and that's going to be paying off as we go into the season as it begins.
I really appreciate the coaching staff for that. Again, that comes with trust, and again, just us being able to have more experience and time together, us having more banked reps, as I've felt more and more comfortable throughout last year, and then now going into year 2 in this system, and then us, continue to build our relationship and grow and have more, more of those shared thoughts within the entire offensive staff. It's definitely something that I'm grateful for.
Danielle, we hear his gratitude. We're excited to see him. What are you expecting and excited to see from Bryce this week?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of anticipation after how last season ended for Bryce Young, where he really started to show his full potential, and we can only expect to see more of that as the season is getting going. But that wide receiver room is definitely something to look at, because they've been really focusing on building different weapon choices for Bryce to work with. Specifically, of course, if we look back to the draft when they went after T-Mac, a receiver at the number 8 spot as the number 8th overall pick in the draft. That's someone that they both talked about having that Cali connection, so there is a little bit of a relationship already between the two. They played at rival high schools, of course, but it's going to be building that over the next week and seeing how Bryce and T-Mac are going to be working together on the field. I think that's going to be something a lot of fans are going to be looking forward to seeing.
All right, Danielle Stein in front of Bank of America Stadium. We look forward to hearing more of your reports as you get the sneak peek up front and personal with the Carolina Panthers. Good fun.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks.
And we'll be checking in with Danielle throughout the week. In the meantime, let's get you back out to Capitol Hill with Secretary Hegseth now testifying in front of the House committee meeting, talking about what he wants to see as far as a budget for the Department of Defense. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Is it the press stories accurate that 40% of the long-range bombers from Russia were destroyed in that attack. Is that an accurate number?
So I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is, but I also know that I may not say that in open session. So I'll take that and get back to you through appropriate channels.
Thanks, gentlemen. Ms. Kaptur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We welcome our guests. I come from a family of combat veterans going back a long time. And my comment is the use of certain words and what they imply. When I hear warrior ethos, and I hear it a lot from you, Mr. Secretary, I'm concerned. All the soldiers in our family, all of whom fought and received medals for their combat service, call themselves soldiers. Marines are trained to kill. In terms of domestic policing, our police and our National Guard at the state level, carefully used, but also our state police, are used in civil enforcement, and they are good. I don't need any reply. I just am concerned about what those words you often utter actually do in people's minds and change the language we have used since the founding of this republic. So that is a concern of mine. I wanted to go to the General and Chairman, if I could. We've heard a lot this morning about Defense Industrial Base. And this is something I ran for office on a long time ago. We have not made significant progress as a country in this regard. And the places that made things, whether they were machine tools, whether it was composite materials, were left behind. It's one of the reasons for the division in our society. So I am very interested in knowing what specifically and in which accounts, and I hope you can get this back to us within a week and a half, you are going to focus on in order to inject additional resources in the defense industrial base of this country. What will that look like? We are just successful now in helping steel to revive and some of our composite metals. 40 years ago, I wrote a title to the defense bill dealing with strategic metals. Nobody at Department of Defense cared, okay? So I'm interested in which accounts, if you could kindly get back to me on that, and when you say defense industrial base, budget-wise, in which accounts, what does that mean? All right, I don't expect you to answer it now. Can you tell me when you might get that information back to us?
Well, ma'am, you just said a week and a half, so I know the awesome humans behind me are scribbling madly to come back to that. Can I just make a quick comment? You know, I happen to be a lucky guy that served in the private sector for a while, and I ran a machine shop in Texas along with a metal finishing business. So when we talk about defense industrial base, I broaden that out to really the national industrial base. There are certain components that are made in the defense side, but as you articulate, ma'am, many others are made in the small machine shops out around this entire nation. When I talk about mobilizing our nation, I think of that national, not just defense industrial base. What do we have to do to create greater capacity all the way down the chain to include jobs at the local level for those people that build quality parts and deliver on time with shorter lead time and lower cost? And so I have great empathy for what you're talking about, and we'll get back to you just as soon as we can.
Yes, and General and Secretary, going back to the drone attack in Ukraine, a country that was invaded by the Russian dictatorship, starting in 2014. They've been at war for a decade, more than a decade. What they've done with drones is astounding. It's going to change warfare. One of my questions is, what are you doing to establish relations with Ukraine and not turn your back on them as an administration and help them win, help liberty win? This has implications way beyond the boundaries of Ukraine. Russia's got 11 time zones. I mean, this is the most important test of liberty for our NATO alliance in my lifetime, and we better help win. And that involves moving forward faster on drone technology. I'm very worried about our air bases where we have secure assets. Mr. Secretary, can we defend them today if they were to have a similar attack?
We're certainly very focused on that, ma'am. And we're learning every day from Ukraine. I think we would need to clarify what win means. This president is committed to peace. He's committed to stopping the killing. And he was not in office when it started in 2014. There were no additional incursions in his first term. And then under the previous administration, Vladimir Putin sought to take Ukraine. We're committed. This administration is committed to peace, to stopping the killing, and we think that serves
Did you just
American
leave
interests.
Ukraine, Mr. Secretary? Did you just leave Ukraine?
Young lady's time's expired, but if you can get
I did
back
not leave Ukraine.
to us on that. that
Have
would
you
be great.
visited Ukraine?
No, ma'am.
My first trip
No.
there, sir, was 1973. I
Time
yield back.
has expired. Mr. Carter, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
For your service to our country. We're very proud of you. I'm fully supportive of the Army's outgoing modernization efforts and the recent Army Transformation Initiative that combined the Army's Future Command with TRADOC to become the Transformational and Training Command. How are you both going to create a partnership between the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, and this new command to ensure the acquisition authorities are modernized and synchronized to achieve the maximum lethality and deterrence?
I'll take that. Maybe I'll hand it to you, Mr. Chairman, as well. We are very encouraged and supportive of the Army's transformation initiative. General George has been critical to that, as has the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll. And together, it's been a heck of a partnership and a willingness to get at the core issues facing today's Army and ensuring it is reformed and modernized to meet the threats of the future. One of those aspects is merging those commands. And I can tell you, whether it's the warrior ethos or lethality, that is central to why we make decisions, ensuring that we're not making decisions on behalf of bureaucrats or process, but to ensure we're getting the most lethal aspects of what we do front and forward as quickly as possible. And that involves things like Futures Command and TRADOC. And when you merge those things, you have to make sure you're getting rid of things that are redundant and pushing forward things that matter the most. But I'll defer to the chairman.
Well, I've shared that commitment completely, and I share this transformation. What do you see as the fundamental capabilities of this command must develop to ensure that we have the lethality and deterrence necessary to succeed in Indo-PACOM? That's where the future is.
Sure, I'll first echo the Secretary's respect and appreciation for Secretary Driscoll and General George. They are a team, and that's always great to see from a warfighter's perspective when you have such a nested combat pair, if you will, that are driving at the same set of objectives. I think there's clarity, Congressman, in the minds of both the Secretary and the Chief on the need for things like long-range fires in the Pacific, and in order to pay for those, they're making those difficult decisions down the Army Transformation Initiative in order to pay for them.
Well, when we started talking about the Futures Command, one of the things that I was hoping we would do is we would not get a project stacked up on somebody's desk and stacked that high, and when he got down to checking on that, oh, that goes to you, and it goes on top of another, on the bottom of another stack that high. And so we get delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed in certain areas of bureaucracy. I think that is dangerous for our country as we look forward in Indo-PACOM.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
why I asked the question. Another issue that's very important, the department has historically relied on outdated production techniques of energetic manufacturing, which may have remained unchanged since the Second World War. How is the department ensuring that investment in next-generation energetics manufacturing, such as AI, machine learning capabilities, and enabling and assurance of quality assurance, robotic-driven load, assembly, and pack, and automated formation processes, a prioritized and transitioned out research and development that is capable of producing these pathways. In other words, a modern way to load and turn out ammunition in the simplest terms.
We're robustly funding things like DIU, like SCO, like the Office of Strategic Capital, to ensure that commercially available options, other companies are able to compete that traditionally are not involved in procurement at the Defense Department, so that the valley of death is eliminated, and you're able to bring in actual competition and dynamic solutions. Otherwise, ammunition's a great example. It's very antiquated in many cases. We're still making rounds the way we made them after World War II. You have to project out what you want to make, send that signal to industry, and then allow innovators to enter that space so they can bring new technology and rapidly field those new technologies. Otherwise, you're stuck doing it the same way you've always done it.
Sir, I was going to add something, but I'll hold off if you're going to roll.
You can get a written response to the
Yes, sir.
gentleman from Texas on that. That's a concern to all of ours, is to modernize our manufacturing capability for we can get back manufacturing to the United States. Well, Mr. Cuellar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, and all three of you are welcome, and thank you for your service. I represent an area from San Antonio all the way to Laredo, the border. In San Antonio, we got Joint Base San Antonio, the largest joint base in the Department of Defense that contributes over $151 billion to the Texas economy. We support 266 mission partners. San Antonio also has the second largest cyber footprint in the nation, hosting the 16th Air Force cyber, and then of course the military facilities that are the best in the country also. Along with that, going down to Laredo, the largest port in the country, 9th largest in the world after 8 Chinese ports. Number 9 in the world is Laredo. And my question, Mr. Secretary, has to do with one of your plans, and ask you to, welcome you to San Antonio, let the San Antonio folks come in. It has to do with Army, U.S. Army North and U.S. Army South. I'm not going to go with their missions or critical mission, but what concerns us in San Antonio, both the Democrats and Republican members of Congress and senators, we're concerned that, in setting up a Western Hemisphere Command, which I think it's a good idea, that you move it away from a place like San Antonio, where, we have the infrastructure, the personnel, the community partnerships to work with you on this. And I say this because I think your testimony has about 11,900 troops that are down there working with the Homeland, which I support. And keeping in mind what's happening with the cartels in Mexico and other places, I would ask you to, when you look at this Western Hemisphere Command, that you don't move it 1,500 miles away from the border, especially in a place like San Antonio. I think we got a few Texans here that can talk about the rest of the state of Texas, and some wannabe Texans also that can talk about what the facilities we have. But I would ask you to, as you consider this, to keep the command, Western Hemisphere Command in San Antonio.
Well, sir, count me amongst some of the wannabe Texans. Tennessee's close enough.
Hey, we got no state income tax. Keep that.
It's true. I appreciate that concern. It is something that has come up multiple times in conversations with Secretary Driscoll and General George in reviewing their Army modernization plan and consolidation, with the recognition that some of those changes, when we go through a posture review and as we're looking at commands, are going to include some tough choices. Some of that includes ranks and positioning, but you still are going to have, at some level, a south and north bifurcation. The question is where that is headquartered, and we are in an ongoing review on that, of exactly where that will shake out. But I would encourage continue deliberation with Secretary Driscoll. They have been thoughtful about it and will continue to be.
And I understand that there's decisions have to be made, efficiencies and all that, but just ask you, as you look at that, if we're doing so much investment on the border,
Yeah.
and we already got the infrastructure down there in San Antonio and all the support from the other military bases across the state of Texas and the partnership, I would ask you and the Secretary to please, before you make a decision, go drink the water, go, feel what we have in San Antonio and the surrounding areas in Texas, to consider that instead of just making a decision by the paper on that. And certainly ask you to consider also the second largest footprint that we have at cyber there in San Antonio, and working with a top cyber university, UTSA there. And of course, the military facilities that we have, which are in the best. And certainly during the Afghanistan and Iraq war, that area was looked. So I just ask that before any decisions were made, consider making a trip to San Antonio and have your folks understand. I know some of y'all have been in Texas before, and would ask you to look at that. So with that, Mr. Secretary, and all of y'all, thank you for your service.
Well, noted, sir, and thank you for your contributions to securing the border, which has been a huge priority for President Trump. We're going to get 100% operational control. It's because of support and folks like you. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chairman Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my thanks to the to our witnesses here today. Secretary Hegseth, General Keane, thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of this committee for your service to our nation. Obviously, we face a number of challenges and pacing threats across the globe in all domains, and we have to ensure that the joint force is ready to fight and win our nation's wars. So let me begin with General Keane. What risks do the recent force structure changes or proposals in the Army and Marine Corps present to the joint force, given your global force integration responsibility? Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yes, sir. And I'll be mindful of the environment that we're in and speak broadly, and thank you for the question. We are having to make some difficult choices to pivot some of the combat capability that we have now to the combat capability that we need in the future. Both services, alongside the Department of the Navy and the Department of the Army, are making those changes in order to provide us with the combat capability and capacity that we need at scale to create the dilemmas that we have to deliver for the joint force and our adversaries. So at this point, we're doing the right pivots, Congressman, to make sure that we have the right depth that we need.
Secretary Hegseth, both of you understand the unique value proposition that the National Guard provides the joint force, having served. And gosh, for a long time, it was just me and Hal Rogers up here as the Guard guys. So it's good to have some company. As we're looking to be efficient with federal dollars, I always kind of believe that the Guard and the reserve component structure in general brought what I called value to the force. That I realize it's probably not at the same level of proficiency that the active duty counterparts might have, but they bring value to the force. And when we need to surge responsibly and quickly, then the Guard and Reserve are certainly at the ready to do that. My question is pretty simple. Can you both commit to ensuring that the National Guard component is resourced and equipped properly to meet not only today's operational demands, but those in the future? And I ask this question having had experience back in the day when the National Guard was more or less a reserve force, and it was only after 9/11 that we began to use the National Guard in a truly operational form. And I thought it did a lot of great things for the Guard. I thought it brought value to the force, and I worry sometimes that we may, pivot back to the time when the National Guard is relegated to more of a reserve structure rather than able to surge with our forces in a moment's need and be able to deliver combat capability and combat service support capability when needed. Can you speak to that, Secretary?
Sir, I think it's an excellent point. It does, the National Guard and Reserves bring great value, not to mention the civilian skills, the additive civilian skills that they bring. Completely recognize the shift that happened after 9/11. I was a part of that, as were many people in the Guard of our generation. I think we're entering an even another phase, especially under President Trump with his focus on the homeland, where the National Guard and Reserves become a critical component of how we secure that homeland and apply those civilian sets across the spectrum. So when you're looking at, say, the Army, for example, what we need in the active Army vis-a-vis the National Guard will not be a reflection of what we need or don't need. It will be a right sizing of where that particular application would be best used. And the National Guard is a huge component of how we see the future, sir.
General Kane.
Sir, the policy makers tell us what size our force should be. What I will commit to you, and by the way, thank you both for your service in the Guard. As a fellow Guardsman, you're legendary in those hallways. What I will commit to you is that I'll make sure that the voice of the Guard is heard at the policy level, pursuant to my job as a chairman.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Case.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Secretary, at the Shangri-La Dialogue in your speech of May 31st, you stated, and I quote, "Here in the Indo-Pacific, our futures are bound together. The prosperity and security of the Indo-Pacific are linked to those of your people." You went on to talk about the benefits from the, quote, "peace and stability that comes with a lasting and strong American presence here in the Indo-Pacific," end quote. Do you believe that the only way to achieve our contributions to peace and security and stability in the Indo-Pacific is through military strength alone?
Sir, certainly not through military strength alone, although military strength is the business that we're in. So we're building partnerships across mill to mill, whether it's the Philippines, Japan, Australia, more actively than any other part of the world, because the application of American strength is not America alone. It's by, with, and through partners who share mutual objectives. And so we are very invested in military-to-military relationships.
So you, as the Secretary of Defense, believe that we need to take a broader approach in the projection of national power, national influence than simply our military. Is that correct?
Well, sir, that's not my job. My job is the military application. So
yes, but
others will determine the broader spectrum of that, but it's always useful to have other applications of power as well.
But how others actually do that does impact your job in running our military, right? I mean, your military operations, your military presence, your mill-to-mill relationships that I agree are important, are all going to be impacted by our non-military projection of power, influence, and assistance throughout the Indo-Pacific. Is that correct?
I would just say that from my 2 recent visits to that region, meeting with many of those ministers of defense multiple times, their focus is what capabilities can we share together, interoperability and capabilities that establish deterrence, because the most important message America can still send, and they can still send, is hard power capabilities. What can we project? Where can we project it? As the chairman said, what dilemmas can we create? That's the business that we're in. And so we work with those partners that share common goals. And our militaries are working better together than they ever have. And I think that helps
appreciate your
support
focus
security.
on the military side. That's obviously directly your job. But I'm asking you to think and comment more broadly on our big picture approach to the world. This administration, for example, has proposed to reduce the State Department by $8.3 billion, the Economic Support Fund, the Development Assistance and Democracy Fund.
All right, you are watching live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Secretary of Defense Hegseth testifying in front of a House committee. That will be available, continue to be available for you here live on the WCNC app. Just go back out of your app and go to the secondary channel. Otherwise, Charlotte Today is up next. And don't forget, starting at 6:30, our Brad Panovich is going to lead the way into Live Impact Weather